I ended up in the middle somehow. How did I end up in the middle? Welcome to Tya Talk. We were just on a moment ago and we were completely arranged differently, but oh well. Technology. What are you going to do? So you have three Tyas with glasses here. Why can't we manifest better eyesight? Is my question. We're supposed to be living in perfection.
Yeah, I'm going to manifest that.
Yeah.
So I do want to. Somebody has some background noise all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, that's probably me. Hang on.
Yeah, a moment ago you didn't have any. So anyway, welcome. As people sign on, I just want to kind of tee up our topic for the day. As always, we can talk about anything and everything, but I really want to talk about the post that I did. If you're following me on Patreon, I did a post yesterday about curing your triggers. I like curing better than healing, because if you think about it, when you're healing something, the vibe around all of that is that there's something wrong that you need to heal. And the stream has come through saying there's nothing wrong. Our eyesight, there's nothing wrong that our eyesight isn't perfect, because our vibrational journey in physical is all about an imperfect journey. So do we need to heal our eyesight, or do we just need to find a solution to have the experience be a positive experience or an expansive experience for us, whatever that is? Maybe it's miraculous healing. There's nothing wrong with miraculous healing, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's making peace with wearing glasses. So when it comes to triggers, and I think most people probably aren't very triggered about having to wear eyeglasses or seeing us with eyeglasses on. Who are these teachers teaching us? They're wearing eyeglasses. I want to manifest everything in perfection. Really, the things that trigger you when you're already down your spiral, and that's the key, is to understand that when you get triggered by something, you are already below neutral on your spiral, or you would not be triggered. Because when you're up your spiral, you're just not bothered by things the way that you are when you're down. But we operate below neutral a lot of the time, all of us. And I don't believe that Tya cures that. I know that Tya doesn't cure polarity or vibrational flow, because we're here for that. So when we find ourselves suddenly being triggered by something, we're already below neutral to begin with. So how do you heal the trigger? That's what I want to talk about. Thoughts, David?
Well, I don't know. I'm working on that myself too. Yeah, that's I think sometimes it's like, at least for me, if there's something that's bugging me, like I can't get it off of my mind. Like, I'm kind of like working through something with one employer right now that's actually really frustrating. And for me, it's easy that I can start to kind of mentally fixate on that, which I definitely is an unwanted process, I guess we could say. I'd rather spend my time thinking of other things. So I guess the question then falls upon, is that a reflection of the vibration, or is that a trigger that needs to be attuned, or maybe a bit of both?
Yeah, for me, it's what's triggering me. What is this and why?
Right.
Carrie, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I do the same. And sometimes I'm not quite sure why I'm triggered. So then I will table it, so to speak. I'll just appreciate that I was triggered and trust that the reason will show up. Or most often I know it's frustration or, fear or judgment. But sometimes I'm just not quite sure, like, why something's triggering me, other than I'm down my spiral. So I know if I just let it go and trust that the reason will show up, oftentimes then I can detune it pretty instantly without having to find out why, if that makes sense. Because I too, David, oftentimes that thought train shows up and then I'm analyzing it and I'm hammering it. And I don't like that feeling, one, and I know it doesn't solve anything. So if I can just change my attention or focus to something else and go up my spiral, go do something I enjoy. And then later, typically the answer just comes to me. And I go, oh, now I know why I was triggered. And most often it's exactly what you said in the beginning, David, is that you're just DTS. You're just below neutral, probably in get it done mode, as we all like to. I believe that's where the collective is, right? In that just below neutral. Get it done. Get through the day. Got to do.
Well, the Matrix teaches us to be in get it done mode all the time.
Yeah. And
Matrix is get it done mode. Really.
I do love the change in the verbiage, because I do agree. When you think about healing, it's like you said, it's like something's wrong. It's nothing wrong. It's just a trigger to show you what's in your default vibration. So I like curing better, or yeah.
Yeah. I like curing, because it's you're curing something. You're sort of taking ownership and responsibility. Tya is all about that, as we all know. And the healing aspect has a victim vibe attached to it. You have to heal something that wasn't your fault.
Yeah, I think maybe this is I think this is maybe a subtle nuance along this line. I think, and this is what I was thinking about as I was driving up today. Is like, let's say someone's working at like Walmart or something, and they're like, and that job suited them for some time, but they realize at some point, like, hey, working at an hourly wage is not really what I want. I want to move away from that. So if someone is like, maybe like you said in your post, David, about the this should not be, like, that's a judgment which we would want to be detuning. So someone could look at the situation and say, oh, they shouldn't be paying people so little, or I shouldn't have such horrible working conditions. That's a judgment thing. But to me, that's different from I don't feel like this is what I want anymore, I should move away from that. But I think, for me personally, what I think a lot of people would struggle with is to move into the transition of moving away, but not going into the judgment. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's easy for me. Like, if I can look at some situations and say, okay, that suited me maybe 2 years ago, but now it doesn't suit me anymore. I don't think I'm actually a match for it anymore. So I'm going to allow that to leave from my experience. But it's very easy to start going into, but they still shouldn't have done that, like that. And how do you sort of like keep those two things separate? Maybe that's a topic for discussion.
Well, and for me, and I said that in the post yesterday, the root of all suffering is that this should not be vibration. And I don't get triggered very often. I use the January 6th, 2021 insurrection as the last time I was triggered, like really triggered. I've had another trigger since then, and it involved an ice maker. So insurrection, someone trying to overthrow the government of my country, and an ice maker both triggered me.
There's progress happening.
It was regression. I'm not sure. But it's that vibe of this should not be. And of course, there's all this other baggage. For me, I've detuned most of the childhood stuff and all of that, so I don't get triggered from things from the past anymore. Anything that happened to me in the past, because I have worked through detuning all of that. So now it's anything that's in that category of old belief system of this should not be. The whole government thing, the injustice of a group of people in that belief system trying to overthrow the government, that was definitely a belief system of that should not be. That's wrong, should not be. There's injustice there. They need to be held accountable. All of that stuff was present. And it was interesting that I was so triggered by that, because I don't get triggered by politics. I don't get triggered by whoever wins the election, or whoever's in control of Congress, or who's getting nominated to the Supreme Court, or any of that stuff. I just don't get triggered by that. So it was interesting to me that thing triggered me. And then I did exactly what Carrie said. I went up my spiral about it first, and then I got clarity that, it's this idea of justice. It's not really politics. It's just the injustice around it. And I was really focused on that, and that's what my trigger was. So I think it's good to point out that in the Tya practice, we go up the spiral first before we start to create. Because Source has told us that all new creation happens above neutral. Because once you're above neutral, your source being is allowed. And in that allowing of your source being, you are creative. You solve things, you create new things. When you're below that, you're recycling. So if you're looking for clarity on something and it's not available, then you need to create that clarity. Well, how do you create it? You get above neutral. Well, how do you get above neutral? You appreciate. So we do this crazy thing in Tya where we move toward appreciation of the very thing that's triggering us. So I move toward appreciation of the insurrection by understanding the mindset of the people that were doing it. And I have not been bothered by any of that since then because I detuned it. I understood that, oh, there's no real injustice because the person that is committing the injustice, in their mind, they are justified. Even if they're harming people, in their mind, they're justified. I know we label them sociopaths and all that stuff, but in their mind, they are justified. They justify it for themselves. And having that understanding of they are so entrenched in this belief system that they are willing to kill and die and overthrow the government for this belief system that they are tuned into. And all of humanity is tuned into a belief system of some sort. We all run on a belief system. No matter who you are, there's a belief system that you're running on. So that's how I detuned that. The ice maker thing was a lot easier. The ice maker thing was just a matter of realizing how ridiculous I was being, going down my spiral over a stupid ice maker, one of 3 in my house. It wasn't like I was suffering without ice. It just was without ice in my bar. That's all. So, the ridiculous. Then when I laughed at myself about it and realized how ridiculous I was about it, it started working again. It fixed itself. And it's worked ever since. In fact, it was almost overflowing yesterday. It was kind of funny. I'm like, damn, now it's overflowing. It's pouring out on the floor. There's too much ice, It's too detuned, I guess. So we can go down our spiral over silly things. But again, the root of that was this is an expensive new thing that should not be malfunctioning. And if it does malfunction, it should have service. And I wasn't getting any of that. So my ego was wrapped up in this should not be. And I was as down my spiral about that as I've been about, more meaningful things, which again, I love those stories because it shows us how silly everything really is. That I can go down my spiral about a freaking ice maker and somebody else is down their spiral about, someone being murdered, which, definitely as a human being has more gravity than an ice machine. So the vibration of this should not be creates the trigger and creates the suffering in the triggering experience. But we solve it by finding authentic appreciation for it.
So let me follow up with a question. Let's go back to like the Walmart example. Let's say a person is like judging that, oh, this employer should not be treating their employees like this. And then they kind of detune and they say, okay, well, this is just a pyramid and this sort of like societal system of jobs and productivity, and I can change the strata of where I am in the pyramid. And then they kind of like detune that, but then like they find themselves a few days later, it still sucks, they're still upset about it. Does that maybe it just wasn't fully detuned, or do you think it could be that there might be a deeper meaning beneath it, lower, that they still have to uncover? I mean, how do you
detuning is a process, right? It's I've tapped into this thing on social media. I think it's YouTube and TikTok. My partner Michael is into the zit popping videos, which I think is really disgusting. But I had to detune that by finding understanding. It's about clearing things out and making better, and cleaning out and making better, and improvement. And we're expansive beings, and we see that's satisfying because of the improvement aspect. My version of that, and this is really weird and really obscure, but there's a whole world of this out there. People that are cleaning really dirty area rugs. I don't know how I discovered this.
What are we talking about exactly?
I'll bring it back around. Don't worry.
Okay. Sorry, I'm a bit lost. Sorry.
I'm going to bring it back around. So I'm into these videos. I've been watching these videos, and it's so satisfying to watch someone clean an area rug, like a really filthy, like it's dark brown, and then when they're done, it's off white. Years and years and years of sitting in a barn or something, and they're scrubbing. And I used to be in the design business, so I appreciate like a hand woven area rug should be something that lasts forever, that sort of thing. So maybe that's part of it. But so the cleaning of the area rug doesn't happen in one step. You clean it and it looks a little better. You clean it some more and it looks a little better. And sometimes in those videos, you're like, good Lord, how many times are they going to go over this thing? But then when they're all done, you see how beautiful it is. And then it is detuned. So detuning to me, and maybe that was a long analogy to make, but detuning to me is like that. You usually aren't going to just sit, and I talk about instantaneously detuning January 6th. But remember, that's after 12 years of practicing this stuff, that I was able to sit down, pinpoint something, find authentic appreciation for it. And it's also something that was not personally impacting me. It wasn't a trigger in my life. It wasn't a relative or a partner or, something like that. That probably contributed to the ease of it as well. But I think about these rug cleaning videos where they go over it and over it and over it and over it. And 30 minutes later, you're still watching them clean this one rug. But it takes all those times to get it all out. So for vibration, I think vibration is the same way. That vibration becomes so ingrained in our belief system that we can begin to detune it, and sometimes it's going to come back around, and then we can choose to detune it some more. And there are some things that we work on for our entire lifetime that's a lifetime of detuning work. But we have to remember that the detuning of transgressors, that's why we're here. So it's not that we're going to cross this threshold and we're all detuned, we're all done. There's nothing left. Our vibrational journey is joy, 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 joy all the time. It's just not going to be that. In my opinion, from my journey in this 12 years in, it's not going to be that. It is better and better and better and better as you detune things. But there's always going to be something else is going to bubble up and take the place of something that you just detuned, because the detuning work expands our being. And here I still had some residual vibration around, and what is the vibration around an ice maker not working that I can't get serviced? There's this should not be, but there's also a fear there that I'm going to have wasted money on this appliance that is sitting in the house, staring at me every day, not doing what I intended it to do. And it's something that I put a lot of pressure on because I was very excited to have it. What a cool thing to have this, this cool ice maker that makes clear ice in your bar. So if you have, make a cocktail or a drink, you've got this thing right there. It's unlimited ice. You have people over. I had all of this vibration built up around this stupid ice machine. And that's what caused the trigger. If it were a leaf blower or something I really don't care anything about, it wouldn't have been such a big deal. And I attached the monetary value also was there. Oh, we spent so much money on this thing and it should be working. So all of that created that trigger for me. And, at the end of the day, if I weren't down my spiral, I would have, Carrie and I talk about this stuff every day. It'd have been like, the ice maker's not working, it'll work tomorrow. My car is magical. I have a broken, it's been a year. I just got the notice today from the dealer that it's been a year and it's time to bring my car back in for service. So my windshield washer reservoir has been broken for a whole year in the desert, and it still works. It's been empty, but somehow I still get water out of it. And in the beginning, I wasn't getting any water out of it. When I first discovered it was broken, I would hit the little button, nothing would happen, and the little light would come on. The thing would come on and say windshield washer fluid is empty or whatever. And now all of a sudden it's working a year later. So if life can be that magical for me around something I'm not placing any pressure on, because I just forgot about it really, then why am I getting upset over an ice machine? There's some sort of this should not be vibration there. We can move on from rugs and ice machines if you want. But I love exploring these little nuances of this practice, because it really is all little nuances, especially once you get past the major detuning stuff. Like for those of you that have gone through boot camp, you kind of tackle the big stuff in boot camp. And then as you move forward in your practice, it becomes this little noticing what's dragging me down, what's reoccurring, what am I falling back into in my belief system that I would like to change, that I would like to detune.
I think it's also worth noting that if you think about, okay, like I know we said we moved on for the ice maker, but I'm not quite ready to let this one go. But it's like, really, is it, if you or think about it, like if yeah, it's probably not about the ice maker, really. If I think of like an employer or some situation, there's usually something deeper beneath it. Like if I think of, like, if I'm playing my instrument and something's not working, I'm getting like frustrated. It's usually directed at myself. Like there's maybe a thinking in there, like, oh, I've been doing this for so long, I should be able to do this by now.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't, um, with trombone and music and stuff, I don't get as frustrated as I used to be. But when I was like younger, like when I was a student, I had to stop myself from throwing my horn across the room at times. There's one of my mutes has a big dent in it. I was telling one of my colleagues there was a big dent, and I said, yeah, that's from a Tomasi trombone concerto, because I couldn't get this one thing and I got so mad I like smashed it on a table or something. I'm better about this now, but I think usually it's not about the actual trigger. It's usually about something beneath it, and that maybe is where the exploration becomes.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. I think there's probably some other. I can tell you another aspect of that was a point of frustration for me. I think you've tapped into something here that I love being able to figure things out for myself. I'm a very, very, very self-taught, self-sufficient person. I've taught myself everything. And I love nothing more than having something that isn't working and then I can go on YouTube and figure out, because we all know there's a YouTube video for everything at this point, right? So I can go on YouTube and figure this thing out and fix it without having to wait on somebody and call somebody, have somebody else to the house. And I counted the other day, we had 9 different people to the house on Monday for different things. 9 people in one. It's crazy. So one less person coming to the house, one less person. I can be self-sufficient. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to fix it. I do like that. But there's no freaking, I guess it's a very low volume thing. There's this ice machine, because when I called the manufacturer, the person that answered the phone didn't even know it existed. So it's like, okay, you don't even know what I'm talking about. So probably not going to get very far here. But I can't find a fix it video. To me, it works sometimes and sometimes it doesn't. So I have to be able to fix that. So you're right. There's like this self-sufficient vibration going on that it's disrupting and triggering me because I believe I should be able to figure out by myself. And Carrie knows I believe I should be able to figure out everything by myself, and I get really frustrated when I don't. So that's the bigger thing. You're right. That's the bigger thing.
Yeah. And I love the conversation because I think it's kind of both things that you brought to light. Oftentimes you can see what, back to the Walmart or the carpet cleaning, it has to be done over and over again. But oftentimes what I've discovered in my practice is it keeps showing up until I detune whatever it is, but it's not oftentimes what I think it is. And then I will have detuned it, but then later the deeper root issue shows up again. And then I have the big aha moment of, oh, that was connected to whatever I'm detuning. Safety was one that had come up for me, which I never even thought about. I've always trusted that I'm safe, and I travel alone, and oftentimes, or with friends, and I've never been afraid to travel. I've always trusted that I'm safe, on the airplane and everything. And so as of the past couple weeks, I've had some interactions with people, and I knew I was safe, but it felt like it could have gone the other way. And I kept thinking, why am I creating this? Like, it's not even in my vibe to question that. But then I started going deeper, and it's that little hidden thing that we talk about in the basement. So this went back to a very early root that I hadn't even really knew about. And it actually basically was tied to fear and judgment again. but fear more tied to financial abundance, which is also safety. And it never occurred to me because I always kept that matrix, cushion in the bank. Got to have 6 months, salary in the bank, and, a cushion in case something happens. And that's what it was tied to, but it was showing up in different ways, not financially. And so my idea around the Walmart thing and the carpet cleaner, like I can see the two tied together, because the Walmart person, there might be somebody that works there and loves their job and feels they're paid and they're sufficient and they're happy. And they love being at Walmart, and they're staying at Walmart for the next 20 years and going to retire. And then there's other people, like probably the three of us. I worked at McDonald's, was one of my very first jobs. And I was like, oh gosh, no, I am not doing this stuff for, minimum wage. Are you kidding me? And, I want better. I don't need to work that hard. It was
it's funny you say, because I've always had admiration for that person that's at the sort of the bottom of the financial pyramid that is very at peace with exactly where they are. I was kind of envious of that because I've never been able to be that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I am much like you, David, in the self-sufficient. I've always been that way too. I'll figure it out. If I can't get answers, I'm going to dive in and figure it out. And I think the curiosity and that drive and inspiration is what pushes me to want more. I want to be challenged. I want to have these deep conversations. I want to be questioned and then leave going, gosh, I don't know the answers to that, but I'll figure it out. Let me look at that more. And so back to the detuning thing, it is layers and layers and layers. And oftentimes, like David said, I've been doing this practice probably, I think it's going on 4 years now. And I still find things in my deep root that I didn't even know that I had, because I'm doing the layered work. And to me, that's the best challenging part of the whole thing. I love when the triggers show up. I love when the obstacles show up, because if they didn't and we were coasting and everything was perfect and we were just happy all the time, I feel like there would be no challenge, and then I would be bored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all dream of this utopia. I know a lot of people that are spiritual teachings. Very often there's this idea that we're building this new earth that's all going to be perfect. And it's funny, at the beginning of COVID, a lot of people thought that's what was happening, that we're ascending to new earth, and this is going to take us to this new place where we all just agree about everything all the time and we live in perfection. And that didn't happen. It's funny because the stream said, this is all going to be about how humanity chooses to react to it. You can go deeper and deeper and deeper into the matrix, or you can ascend out of it. And what's really happening is, because we're in a polarized environment, we're just seeing both. We're seeing all of this craziness, quote unquote, take us more out of the matrix. The more I see what's going on in the matrix, the more I think, gosh, I want to move further out of it. Something yesterday about another new pandemic coming from China. Like, geez, that's getting a little tired at this point, right? Because right now we got this monkeypox thing, and now there's some other new, be scared of this too. You need to be afraid of this too. And the sad thing is that a lot of people will, I say sad in my judgment of it, will react that way. But just like the people that work at Walmart, they're having their vibrational journey. And I can judge it if I want, but if I want to keep my vibe high, I need to realize that that's just my judgment of it, and that I can't go down that rabbit hole of that should not be. That those people should not be so afraid, or they shouldn't be in the matrix. That's just going to lower my vibration and my judgment of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
and I think, like you said, the Walmart workers, there are plenty that are happy with their job, and they feel a sense of purpose. They love going and putting that uniform on and doing that thing every day, and they have figured out how to make their lives work at that level of income. and they're content. And those are some of the happiest people I'm aware of, are the ones that are just content exactly where they are.
Didn't the stream say at some point that people we project in kind of seeking a certain like layer of or a certain amount of contrast, and that the more like the more almost like the more developed souls are actually choosing a harder journey?
Well,
Like
yeah, they have said many times that when we look at the child that's born into poverty or starvation, a war-torn country, whatever, that is a soul that is seeking that expansive experience in physical, because we choose. So you think, gosh, why would a soul choose to be born into or even project into conceiving as a stillborn fetus or something along those lines? Why? What's the journey there? Well, there is a vibrational journey, because remember, we are perceiving a linear journey where the soul is eternal, and not perceiving a linear journey. They're perceiving experience, expansive experience that expands the consciousness, and consciousness does expand. So the thing that's hard for us to wrap our minds around is, well, how do you expand if there's no linear experience? And the best way I can explain it is, think of when you refresh your computer and it sort of overwrites, but it gets better. It's like that. You're constantly refreshing your experience. Your experience just expanded and got more complex, more evolved in this interaction. That it got more evolved, became more evolved because you just created an expanse out of DTS. You've experienced an obstacle, and you've allowed that obstacle to inform you. You went up your spiral, you solved the obstacle, you started picking it apart, and how did I get here? And maybe you don't ever go back there again because you fully detuned it, or maybe you do, and you clean the rug a little more, and you detune a little more, and then until one day you have a clean rug and you don't have to detune it again. You can move on to something else. Then another rug shows up yet to be cleaned. And that is our vibrational journey. So the hardest thing, I think, for a lot of us is to not look at the vibrational journey of another in judgment of it. And we will, and it's okay, but the detuning of, I need the people of Walmart to be treated better and compensated better, or I need the people of a certain country that I see on the news to be treated better and have clean drinking water and food to eat and clothes to wear and all that. That's us judging their vibrational journey. So we can observe and appreciate and notice that, oh, I'm feeling a little judgmental around this. Do I want to detune that? Can I sort of refocus? And I think that this is just something that we do ongoing, is learn to refocus. Like, oh, wait a minute, why am I judging the Walmart person's experience if they're choosing to place themselves there and they believe they have no other choice? Because I know there's probably a lot of people that feel like they're stuck there. I think of my hometown in Minden, Louisiana. Walmart came into town and put all the little businesses out of business. So all those mom and pop people that own businesses ended up working at Walmart, because Walmart put them out of business, and they ended up working there. And it became the purveyor of everything in that little town. So they probably feel there's probably people working there that are content, and there are probably other people working there that feel like they're stuck. This is the only option. This is it. So they've created that reality for themselves in that belief system, and for them it's true. But we all know that it's not. You can do other things. You're always capable of doing something else. So, you're always capable of creating abundance, no matter what the matrix tells you you're supposed to have going on, including employment.
I guess one question is, maybe this is a slightly different direction, but like, a lot of people struggle with also perfectionism. Like you think of a person who's like someone cleaning their car, and it takes them hours to wash the car because every little thing has to be perfect, And so we talk about like, so cleaning the rug or cleaning up a vibration and like kind of an ongoing process. But then at some point, if that becomes like a judgment in that process, or a judgment of perfectionism of it, does that not become yet another layer to the problem? I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know.
you have to detune perfection. In my remodeling this house this year, I have this vision of this, all done perfect house. And there's lots of imperfections in it. There are things that aren't working, as we know, that are supposed to be working. In the midst of my going down my spiral about the ice maker, the other refrigerator, I discovered a leak, and it's destroyed a whole wall and molding and all kinds of stuff, in another part of the house. So, and that I didn't even talk about that because that was, it was that what didn't trigger me. It was like, oh, of course I did that. Of course I created that reality for myself, getting all upset about one ice maker not working and the other one sort of like, hold my drink, I'm going to leak all over the place and destroy a wall. It was kind of funny, actually. And, letting go of the need for perfection, because there's always just going to be something. We live in an imperfect world of vibration that is all over the place. So there's always going to be something to work on, something to fix. There's no, there's just no perfect being among us. Everybody's got their thing. I was watching this video. I talk about Bill Maher a lot. I like Bill Maher, and there's this video going around where he's so open minded about so many things, but he is a big proponent of shaming fat people. Anybody that's overweight, they need to be shamed. They're harming society. They're harming themselves. He's very judgmental around that, and it's interesting because that's something people like to pick out because it's so visually obvious when someone is overweight, that you can pick that thing and say we need to shame that person for being overweight. But everybody has their thing. Everybody has something going on within them that is a work in progress or a vibration that they're looking to choose, or maybe they're not. Maybe they're at peace with it, and that's so disruptive to your belief system or his belief system that that's a trigger for him. Because in his belief system, and I know plenty of people in their belief system, the worst thing that could ever happen is to gain a pound or two. I used to listen to Howard Stern years ago, and he was like that. He said any woman over 100 pounds is fat. He used to say that all the time. And then in his talking about it would get into how obsessed he was with his own weight. He's tall and really thin, but he says if he gains a pound, he'll just stop eating completely. He's so on it all the time. And it's funny how we get into these belief systems where we judge these things as a society, and we think it's okay to judge and shame other people for the thing that bothers us. And it always comes back around to this is the thing that bothers you about yourself, and you're bothered when other people aren't bothered by your thing. You need them to believe the way that you do. But then he'll take, Bill Maher takes the topic of religion and does exactly that. How dare you tell me that I'm supposed to believe in your religion? I'm an atheist and I don't believe in any of it. Well, that's kind of goes back to our topic that we've been talking about a lot lately. I just did a podcast that will be out in a couple of weeks with Stacy. That becomes your new God. Whatever that belief system is just replaces Christianity or whatever religion that you're denouncing, because you are now giving your power to politics, or you're giving your power to fitness, or you're giving your power to money. You're giving your power to something as your God. And so Stacy asked the question, I'm kind of giving away the podcast now, what is my God? My God is my belief system. I know that it is. I love the exploration of belief systems because I believe everybody runs on one, that we create it, and therefore we have the power to recreate it, to change it, to shift it, to evolve it, and have our belief system really change our human experience.
That was really interesting because it made me think of oftentimes when a person feels like they can't control the immediate situation, they can control that. I can control my weight by not eating. I can control my energy by spending 5 hours cleaning my car and focusing on that, because my life's a shit show and I can't focus. I can't fix that, whatever's going on in my life, which is interesting because I think that's a matrix belief as well, is that we can't control. But what Tya teaches you is it's reverse. And actually, when you go within and learn that you can control so much more than you think, you can create your environment, and you do have much more power than we are ever led to believe in the matrix. And so that's interesting, because I too was a perfectionist. And again, like David said, oftentimes when I would become frustrated, I would say, forget it, I'll figure it out and I'll do it myself, because I knew I would do a great job. And I didn't want to pay for a mediocre job. And then I moved to Belize, and everything is hand built here. And I am in such awe and appreciation of all the imperfections in the home that was built for me, because they do everything by hand. And it's, to me, it's become so much more beautiful than a factory built cabinet, so to speak. These cabinets were handmade, and there's so much pride and love and in their craftsmanship, that the imperfections are so beautiful. And it just, to me, it was such a it felt like such a match to the Tya mindset of appreciating that we all do have imperfections, and that none of us are perfect, but we're here doing the best we can. So I love that. I love that story, David. That was good.
When you're talking about that, that's great. Another thing too, it just came to me, and it's kind of a musical understanding, or that I think ties into the perfection thing. Is many times as a musician, it's like we talk about the gap, which is the gap between what I can imagine and what I can actually do. So if I think of like the way I would think music should sound versus what I'm actually able to do, there's this gap. As I improve my skill, I get closer to that ideal. But at some point, my imagination grows a bit and the new level becomes apparent. And what it feels like is I got worse. But that's not actually what happened. What happened is I just expanded my awareness of what I could do. And I remember when I was like a student, my teacher would play something for me, and I was just like, wow, how did you do that? And he's like, I could find 8 things I was unhappy with about that. But to me, it sounded perfect, But it's just about, but that's why I remember I had teachers telling me at a relatively early age, if you feel like you got worse, it doesn't necessarily mean you actually got worse. You just like hear more. And I think that there's maybe some.
Well, it goes back to that analogy we use in boot camp, where you get used to flying in first class, and then going back to coach sucks more and more and more, because you at one time were used to flying coach, and now you're accustomed to first class. And when you're back in coach, you're judging it a lot more harshly, because that's, you've expanded, your vibration has expanded to a new place. And then when you're not aligned with that new vibration, it's more noticeable.
Yeah, I think you just described boot camp to a T. Because when you first start boot camp and you find out about your Claude voice, it's like, oh wow, I never noticed like how much my Claude voice is talking to me. And then you try to detune it, and it's like you feel like you've really gone a lower level, but it's just that you're aware, because now each time you move through boot camp, you've raised your vibration higher. So the lower feels lower, but it's not really. It's that expansion or that gap that you just described. It was like, oh my gosh, I just saw this perfect visual of the spiral and the vibrations and the way you described it, because it is very same. The more we expand and explore our Tya mindset and use the tools, when you do drop DTS, go below neutral, it feels horrible. Like it shows right away, you notice it. Where before I was cruising probably below neutral most of my life.
Yeah.
And now
it still says that we spend most of our time in get it done mode, because we're programmed to do that.
Oh,
and
I was still get it done mode.
That's below, we're at a -5 most of the time. So when you're wanting to be above neutral, and you're realizing that, hey, I'm not enjoying right now, I'm just kind of getting things done, And how
Mhm.
much time do I actually spend in this space of just getting stuff done,
Oh
not
yeah.
enjoy? And my exercise is to, that, remember, you probably, David, are too young to remember. There used to be a song called "Stop and Smell the Roses." That stop and stop and smell the roses means really looking for things to appreciate all day, every day, not waiting until the weekend or until your vacation or until you own a home or until you're in a better relationship or whatever it is. You've got to appreciate the now, even if it doesn't look perfect in the matrix. And the only thing, the matrix is the only thing guiding us toward this bullshit version of perfection for our bodies, for our relationships, for our health, for our bank account, for the home we live in, the car we drive. That's all the matrix that is saying that this is what you're supposed to be, because our soul is not. Our soul is saying the little kid playing in the mud with no clean water to drink, covered in flies, is having a joyful journey, or can have a joyful journey right there, because maybe they're not even aware of the matrix because they're so far out of technology and things like that that they're not aware of what they're supposed to be. They're blissfully unaware that there are other little kids that aren't living like that, and they're not judging themselves, and they're able to find joy in their experience because it's all they know. And then, we tend to look at that and think, oh, that's so sad. Oh, that child needs to be plucked out of that environment. Someone needs to adopt that child and take them and pop them down, in the matrix. And then what happens? They start looking around and realizing, gosh, this is terrible. This is awful. I was watching something the other day where I used to watch the Rosie O'Donnell show years and years and years and years ago when she had a talk show, and I know she's a lesbian and she adopted a bunch of kids, and that's kind of all I really knew about her. Well, now her kids are grown, and she's got this kid that hates her. This child that she adopted that is very against her. She's very outspoken about what a horrible mother she was and how awful her childhood was. And really, it's just a lack of appreciation. It wasn't that her mother was abusive, it's that her childhood wasn't normal. She doesn't like the fact that her mother was a lesbian. She doesn't like the fact that her mother was, famous. And all I can think of is, gosh, you're so not looking at the appreciation that someone chose to give you up and this woman chose to adopt you. And I don't know what the home life was like. I'm sure it wasn't perfect, but bring you up in a pretty privileged situation, I would imagine. But you don't realize that. You're comparing your life against your friends at school who have a mom and a dad, and your mother's not controversial, and that comparison is causing her to have this journey of really rebelling against her mother very publicly. And I saw that the other day, and I thought that's really interesting, how you don't appreciate what you have because you take for granted what you have. And one way or the other, no matter what the reality of the situation is, there's definitely a lack of appreciation going on there. And it just reminded me how important it is to find appreciation for whatever we're in, whatever we've manifested. And maybe as she grows up a little more and gets a little older, she'll realize, gosh, my weird childhood was kind of cool. It was kind of different. I had a lot of opportunities other kids didn't have. It's probably just something she's just working through, but it's not uncommon. That whole spoiled mentality of taking what's handed to you with ease for granted. And think about the places in your lives, all of our lives, where we just take that stuff for granted. Like living in a big, beautiful home and going down your spiral over a stupid ice maker. We all do it, right?
It's so funny how the perspective as well. I remember when I was a student, I was at a summer music festival, and there was I won't name the orchestra, but there was a brass player from a very prominent orchestra, like one of the top 5 in the world, came down as a coach. And so we're all like, oh, this player's from the such and such a whatever, this famous brass section. And all he did was complain. Oh, the trombones are so loud and the trumpets play ahead, and the conductor is always doing this. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, I would kill to be in a brass section like that. I was like, we're all on the outside looking in, but that's something I've noticed in symphony orchestras. The pay changes, but the attitude still stays the same. You still have people that are just totally happy in their job and loving it, and you have some people that are just miserable. And the thing is, it's actually a bit bewildering to me because we fight really hard to get into this industry. I mean, you have to go through a lot to get to do an audition process. Like, you could make way more money working at like a bank or something, Like, and why people would do this and then be upset about it. I never understood that. Even as a young, even when I was a college student, when I heard this guy talking, I kind of thought that it doesn't make sense to me, you know. But yeah, but it's funny, the perspective of where we are. It's about that gap. I think the gap between what we're imagining and what we're able to do or what we're experiencing. That's kind of um, yeah, the space we're kind of working in. And there's like, they also talk about this sort of like the stretching, like reaching for that another level is kind of like where the it's kind of like I wouldn't say it's comfortable. It's definitely, it's not comfortable, but there's a pleasant discomfort, I guess, in reaching for that next level, and then the next, and then the next, and the next. You know, it doesn't really end, I don't think.
I love
Well, I
that.
think we see in pop stars sometimes people get kind of comfortable where they are, and then they're just their new stuff just isn't as good, or their performances aren't as good as they used to be, and then sometimes that recognition of their decline motivates them to go even higher and get even better. You know, again, it's that expansive vibrational journey that we're on.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, my personal experience as of late was what I envisioned when I was in boot camp and had my vision board and, you know, the inspiration to create and write and do. And now when I look back at that, it's like I, at that time, didn't even know I could dream as big as I'm dreaming now because it wasn't even in my scope of reality. Like David said, like the little kid playing in the mud, he's probably never seen in a third world country, he's probably never even seen Instagram or, you know, worldwide, thinks everybody lives like that. Like he has no idea what's out there. And so the same with myself. I remember creating our, you know, our vision board in boot camp, and it was lovely. And actually, I think I've manifested everything that was on there, which is pretty cool. But now I have expanded and I've grown in my practice that now, like you said, there's a new gap, and I'm realizing that I can dream even bigger. I can inspire to be even bigger. And and then the desire for stuff fades away. Because you know, when I was young, and like you said, with meeting these people that were, you know, either business owners or famous people, and I'm like, oh, they have everything. They live in a mansion, they can travel where they want, they probably don't worry about money. And then you realize that many of them aren't even happy. And so it's interesting when you start to really see that show up in your own life, I think, because it does make me realize that all the stuff that I wanted, I don't even care about anymore. I mean, it's nice. Yes, a nice home is nice and a nice car to drive, but that's not what I'm choosing to dream about anymore. It's more than that. It's the experiences and the waking up in joy and clarity every day, which again, never dreamed that I would even be in this place of such clarity and joy. So I do love that. I love that how you just said that, like the gap, and then you inspire, and then you meet that gap, and then there's another one. And there's never a ceiling to where you can go in any situation. So, and then my other thought when you were saying that, David, is the little kid playing in the mud that doesn't have clean drinking water. And we say, oh, how sad. But how do we know that's not the child that is so inspired by his life that he creates a whole new drinking water system?
Yeah.
You know,
That will be that does, you know, we all know that happens, and that will be for sure.
right.
And why do we love those stories so much? It's expansion. We're
Yes.
here for the expansion, all of us. And I think the key to happiness is to love your now and where you are, and still have that expansive mindset to this is wonderful and there's more, instead of this is horrible and I need more.
Yeah.
This is wonderful and there's more. I'm an expansive being. It's okay to want more, but I know that my path to more is going to be found in my joy in my now.
Mhm.
Note to
And
self.
duration. And yeah, and I think any human being can relate to the worst thing that's happened to you and you survived it is what inspired you to move out of that situation. Because when everything's going great, we kind of coast, right?
Well, and that's why in the coasting, that's why in the coasting sometimes we create a decline so that we won't just coast anymore. That wait a minute, I've got to get my act together and get back in an expansive mode. Definitely. Well, we can wrap up there. This has been an interesting 55-minute conversation. We've talked about rug cleaning and pimple popping and all the important topics that relate to Tya. I love watching things and being able to make it about Tya no matter what, because Tya is about a vibrational journey and everything is about a vibrational journey for sure. So what we'll leave you all with is realizing, if you don't already, and you probably do if you watch this a lot, that the key to happiness is being that blissful child that is very happy playing in your mud puddle. And that doesn't mean that you're sticking yourself there. But as long as you continue to judge that mud puddle as should not be, you're going to create your suffering in it, and you're probably creating more of it, because we are consciously creating every single day after day after day after day of our reality. And the reason we have this continuity is because we have that established vibration that is our belief system. And getting into something, even boot camp, and trying to completely change your belief system in 12 weeks isn't very effective. What we look for in boot camp is for you to change things enough so that you know that it works and you know how to do it. And then the real work starts. And David just shared this with me this week. The real work starts when you get out of boot camp and you start applying this in your life every day for the rest of your life, if you choose to do so. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching live. Those of you that were on with us. Cheryl, I do want to acknowledge that you said hello. And David and Carrie, as always, thank you both for joining. And we're doing lots of roundtables. So if you're in Patreon or wherever you're watching us, we do make these available for anyone who's a Tya practitioner to jump on live with us and have a roundtable discussion about this amazing practice. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having me.